The Wildcats look to clip the wings off the Cardinals tonight at Shotwell. I'm Hannah Knoll.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll preview ACU versus Lamar and try to pin down former Wildcat great and WWE champ John JBL Layfield. It's the Ken Collums Show right now. Welcome to Week 6 of the Ken Collums Show. From the campus of Abilene Christian University, I'm Grant Boone, joined by ACU junior journalism major Hannah Knoll and the head coach of the ACU football Wildcats, Ken Collums. Tonight at Shotwell Stadium, two of the founding members of the Southland Conference renew acquaintances as ACU hosts the Lamar University Cardinals. Coach, in addition to watching the Wildcats, ACU fans tonight get a chance to see one of the best players, at least in the Southland Conference, if not in the nation, in running back Cade Harrington. What makes Cade Harrington such a special player?
Well, what a player he is. He is a fierce competitor. He's a shorter guy, and he's really put together, which gives him a very low center of gravity, and he's tough, and he's got good speed. And so within their scheme, what he does, he finds little slivers of room in which to run, and he does a great job. He's something special.
Coach, Dallas Seeley got roughed up early in the game against UCA. How hard is it to create a game plan when you're unsure if you'll have your starting quarterback?
Well, Hannah, you do what you do offensively. You don't create new plays or change your philosophy or anything like that. And, you know, what we do in fall camp is put together our offense, which we know our quarterbacks and we know what kind of tools they bring to the table. And if you can't use one tool, then don't do something where you need that tool. So, you know, it's never good losing your starter. I mean, he was the number 2 guy in the country as far as throwing the ball in the production, so you lose a lot of that. But you know, Parker will do a fine job if he's playing tonight. So
we'll get the prognosis on Dallas a little bit later on in the show when we preview the game against Lamar. But when we come back, highlights and analysis of last week's game against Coach Collums' alma mater. Stay with us. It's the Ken Collums Show presented by Lawrence Hall. Each week on the Ken Collums Show, we take a look back at great moments in ACU's 58 years at Shotwell Stadium. This week's final shot is from the Wildcats' very first game at Shotwell, supposed to be October 3rd of 1959, but the game got washed out, and so it was Halloween of 59 against the Trinity Tigers, the first game. Rain and wind chills in the 30s. The Wildcats forced 7 Trinity turnovers, got 22 tackles from Dale Reynolds, and a touchdown run and extra point kick from Bill Locke in a 13-12 victory. Well, last Saturday at Shotwell, ACU hosted Coach Collums' alma mater, the red-hot Central Arkansas Bears. With the highlights, here's Jonathan Rates.
UCA entered the game boasting one of the top defenses in the conference, but it was their offense that shined in the 58-27 victory over ACU as it outgained the Wildcats 502 to 253. The scoring started unconventionally for the Bears, as it was their special teams and defense pinning ACU deep and coming up with a safety to take a 2-0 lead with 11 minutes and 54 seconds remaining in the first quarter. ACU wasted little time answering though, as sophomore quarterback Dallas Seeley orchestrated an 11-play, 59-yard drive capped off by a 1-yard touchdown run by DeAndre Brown to take the lead 7-2. Unfortunately, this would be Seeley's only touchdown drive of the day and the Wildcats' only touchdown of the first half, as Seeley would later leave the game with a head injury. But the Bears would answer almost as quickly when they found the end zone on a Hay Hildebrand 32-yard pass to Jatavius Wilson, which gave UCA a 9-7 lead at the end of the first. The second quarter would reveal the effects of the absence of Seeley, as ACU was outscored 28-6, beginning with an 80-yard touchdown run from Hildebrand on 3rd and 9, which made it 16-7. Junior Nick Grau would answer the touchdown with his 5th field goal on the season, a 21-yarder, to cut the lead to 16-10. But UCA was firing on all cylinders in the second quarter, and 3 minutes later, they traveled 48 yards in 8 plays to take a 23-10 lead on a Kelton Warren 1-yard run. In an attempt to keep it close, ACU responded with another field goal, as Grau converted from 34 yards out to make it a 10-point game at 23-13. However, it would be all UCA the rest of the half, as it scored 14 more points before halftime, including an 18-yard interception return for a touchdown by George Odom, making it 37-13 at the break. The second half would be more evenly played, but for the first time this season, ACU would be outscored in the third and fourth quarters. The Bears struck first with a 7-yard run from Keyshawn Ledet to put the score at 44-13 with 8 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the third. The Wildcats brought the score to 44-20 on a 1-yard touchdown run by freshman Tracy James, which capped a 69-yard drive, but the 24-point deficit wouldn't hold for long. UCA's Dwayne Smith returned the ensuing kickoff 93 yards for a touchdown, and the Bears scored again on their next drive to take a 38-point lead at 58-20 as ACU faced its largest deficit of the season with 11 minutes and 1 second remaining in the game. The Wildcats did respond with a touchdown as senior backup quarterback Parker McKenzie found sophomore tight end Cody Innes from 2 yards out to cap off a 75-yard drive, but the score would remain at 58-27 for the rest of the game.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you. 58-27, the final score. Coach, you have struggled to score points in the first half, but you get a really nice first quarter drive punctuated by a DeAndre Brown touchdown run from a yard out. What was the key to that drive?
Well, we had focused all week just on starting faster. We set things up in practice like that in our weight room, and we were just mindful, and we talked about it a lot and stressed that before the game, and we came out and had a fine drive, a fine first quarter, and unfortunately, in our second drive, we get Dallas Seeley hurt, and that kills some of our momentum. But we know this: Parker's a very capable quarterback. Came in, did a fine job, made some mistakes, as did several other people, but it was crucial to get started faster to give yourself a chance against a team like that.
Well, it certainly, as much as it is a luxury for you to have a guy like Parker who started some huge games for you through the years, it does change things, though, doesn't it? It changes the way you call a game.
Sure, and it changes the way that a defense calls, their game. Sometimes they feel a little bit better about playing man coverage when you see a lot of long quarterback runs, as you saw from UCA's quarterback against man coverage, and Dallas is gifted with that ability to do that. He did it through the first 4 games. So, and Parker's more of a distributor, and so yeah, it changes a little bit what you do, but it also changes just the dynamics of the game.
First play of the second quarter, it's 9-7, and all in all, this is a team that's coming off a win against an FBS opponent the week before, Arkansas State. And 9-7 first quarter, they had the lead. First play of the second quarter, on a 3rd and 9, look for a second like you had Hayden Hildebrand. He squirts free and rumbles 80 yards, his career-long run. When you see a quarterback break a play like that, what's going on? It takes almost like the perfect storm, doesn't it?
It does, and if you drew, all right, what's the worst thing that can happen? I don't know that it was the worst, but it would have been in the top 3 probably. We were in man coverage. Our backs were to the quarterback, and Hayden's a talented guy, and he's got way more speed than people give him credit for, I'm sure, because he's already scored on a run from 50 out this year, and you don't see 80-yard runs by quarterbacks. So it was a perfect situation for that to happen, and it actually played out.
Did that take a little wind out of your sails?
Well, it does. It's a bummer, but it doesn't affect. It's in the first play of the second quarter. There's a lot of football to be played, and we knew that. So the thing was, do what you do and make routine plays. And
you did. You come back downfield, and it's 16-7 even after the run. And Parker McKenzie leads you into the tight red zone. You've got a 1st and goal at the 6, a 2nd and goal at the 3. You try a little razzle-dazzle play with Chase Coakley. Take us through what you were thinking there, and it took a great play by them to break it up, because I think Parker was open, wasn't
Sure,
he?
He was wide open. And they always are when you run that little gadget play. It takes the defense to do what they're supposed to do, which is any gadget. If you call it against the defense and they simply do what they're supposed to do, your guy should be open. That's a good gadget. But their defensive end recognized it and played it well. He's an explosive guy. Got enough on Chase to be able to bother the throw. And if Chase was a quarterback, he probably could have handled it. But a receiver doesn't see a defensive end in his face as he's trying to throw the ball very much. And that's gadgets work, and then they don't. But We ran it last time we ran it. It was a 2-point conversion against Stephen F. Austin a couple years ago.
Well, 23-10 after another field goal by Nick Grau, who looks like he's as good as ever. They get a touchdown, and then it's 30-10, Coach, and this seems to follow the pattern of 2016. Whatever you try, it seems like one of those seasons where it just doesn't work. You got a minute and a half or so, and you're trying to say, let's see what we can get downfield. You get a dropped ball on look like what could have been maybe a little big play on the edge, maybe a big play on the edge with Justin Miller. Can't quite pull it off, and then you get the pick six. It's never quite as simple as it looks to the naked eye, is it? You got a couple of things going on there that lead to a big play, including a guy like George Odom for Central Arkansas, who's a certified ball hawk.
Yeah, he's an instinctive player. Miscommunication by our quarterback and our running back on a certain one-on-one route. We were trying to work a one-on-one, and it didn't work out. And those guys, hadn't practiced that play enough together, I guess.
Well, and that's what happens when you have a backup quarterback coming in. So ACU fights to the end, gets a late touchdown to Cody Ennis, the H-back, punter, quarterback, do-it-all man, and takes maybe a little bit of momentum into this week against Lamar. We'll preview that game against the Cardinals in just a bit, but as we go to break, take a look at last week's scores from around the Southland Conference. This is the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall.
We're back with more of the Ken Collums Show. While ACU football hopes for a big home crowd tonight against Lamar, the women's soccer team will be back in Elmer Gray Stadium. Here's Max Preston with a look at more ACU sports.
Thanks, Hannah. The volleyball team competed in 2 conference matches against New Orleans and Southeastern Louisiana, winning against both by a score of 3-1. In the game against New Orleans, sophomore J.C. Smith and Kendall Bossy put up 9 kills each. Bossy also put up 19 assists in the game. Against Southeastern Louisiana, sophomore Lauren Walker totaled 11 kills, while senior Lexi Mercier earned 10. Freshman Amanda Chapa picked up 49 digs in the 2 games. The soccer team went on the road to face Northwestern State, losing 2-1 in overtime, and Central Arkansas tying that match 0-0. Against Northwestern State, senior Natalie Throneberry scored the only goal of the weekend, coming off of an assist from sophomore Dylan Owens. The goal gave Throneberry the lead in goals on the team with 3. Senior goalkeeper Sydney Newton made 14 saves over the weekend, pushing her season total to 51. The women were scheduled to play Houston Baptist at Elmer Gray Stadium Friday. The men's tennis team was busy this weekend at the ITA Men's All-American Championships at the University of Tulsa. Senior Nico Agratelli and juniors Henry Adams, sophomore Josh Sheehy, and freshman Jonathan Sheehy all picked up victories in singles over the weekend, but lost each of their next matches. The men's team will next go to Albuquerque for the Lobo Invitational, while the women will compete in Dallas next weekend at the SMU Invitational. Well, that wraps up this week's Sportscast. For JMC Network Sports, I'm Max Preston.
Thanks, Max. In the 95 years of ACU football, few players have been as exceptional on the field and as eclectic off of it as John Layfield. An All-America offensive tackle for the Wildcats in 1989, Layfield has become famous as both a professional wrestler and a stock market analyst. After Saturday's game at Shotwell, Grant stepped into the ring with John JBL Layfield to hear his amazing ACU story.
Well, we're here at Shotwell Stadium where John Layfield was an All-America offensive lineman for ACU. And, John, when you look back on that field, I know it's field turf these days as opposed to natural grass, but when you see that field, I know you don't get back here very often. What comes to mind when you look out there?
It's incredible memories. I remember I was standing just right here when Ovi Johansson kicked that 69-yard field goal. The wind's blowing this way. That day it was blowing the other way. 1976 homecoming. I was just a little kid with my cousin Alan Rich, who's now one of the trustees on the board of directors, whatever it is, for Abilene Christian. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I can remember like it was yesterday, my first game I played, and I turned to Rex Lamberti. I said, nobody's going to touch you today. I was all fired up freshman. Just great memories on this field. I don't remember games. Yeah. I don't remember scores, but I remember incredible memories on this field at Shotwell Stadium.
Well, a lot of people remember games that you played in and some heroic performances by you and some of those great offenses that Rex was guiding, that you were helping to engineer with your protection. You by doing some ASU games the last couple of weeks on radio with me and then the television broadcast, it's given you a chance to see some old faces, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I got a bunch of the guys from the 86 and 87 teams here today. It's hard to believe that was 30 years ago now, and it's so great to see these guys. Stephen H., John Busing, Mark Stevens, Sid Bloomer was here. You know, so good to see these guys after all this time. I was sitting there last night talking to them. It's just almost like yesterday. Like I said, I don't remember a lot of this stuff, and then they start telling stories, and you start remember one, you remember another, and you remember what great times it was here at Abilene Christian.
You know, you left ACU and you went to play professionally. You had a year with the Raiders, I know, back when the Raiders were really rolling, and then you played some in the World League. You had a quarterback that's still hanging around these days as a head coach, right?
Yeah, he was a decent quarterback. I think he's a better coach. Jason Garrett, who was a great offensive coordinator, and now the Cowboys head coach, has done just a phenomenal job. Mike Riley was our head coach, yes, who now is at Nebraska and having an incredible season under his belt. Mike's a really good man, as well as Jason, just a fine man.
John, you went on to the world of professional wrestling, and like with most things, you start small and you're wrestling for peanuts, maybe, I don't know, literally peanuts, perhaps some nights in some barns around Sweetwater in West Texas, and then things grew. It's been a wild ride with you in professional wrestling, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been incredibly wild. I was started in Europe. I was wrestling here, then I went to Europe for 2 years, wrestled in carnivals all over Europe, believe it or not, in Austria and Germany. I lived there, had a 16-foot long trailer by 6 feet wide. So my first home was 84 square feet. I guess that's what it works out to. And made it to WWE, and I thought my career was over. I had a torn bicep. I had wrestled for quite a while. I thought, well, I had a good run. I got better, and they needed somebody right away. I came back, and Eddie Guerrero was my opponent the next pay-per-view in the main event. It went well, and I ended up going on this run as world champion that I never really saw coming that late in my career. And it almost was like it was better because it was so late in my career. I'd worked so hard to get to that level that I just enjoyed every second of it. And when it was over, I just said, thank you. I've had my run. Guys, God bless you. I'll see you soon.
We'll have the second half of Grant's tag team conversation with John Layfield on next week's show. When we come back, we'll preview tonight's ACU game against the Lamar Cardinals. Stay with us right here on the Ken Collums Show.
As we welcome you back to the Ken Collums Show, take a look at this week's schedule in the Southland Conference. Stephen F. Austin goes down to Thibodaux, Louisiana, and Coach, they play Nichols. Those Nichols Colonels are doing some things down there with Coach Tim Rebo, aren't they?
They're doing a great job this year. I mean, they almost beat the University of Georgia.
Which doesn't happen very often. Well, ACU tonight hosts Lamar, as we said earlier, in a matchup of two of the founding 5 members of the Southland Conference back in 1963. ACU, of course, left the Southland for about 40 years. Lamar disbanded its football program from 1990 through 2009 before reviving it in 2010. Coach, how would you assess the job that Lamar has done in bringing football back 6 years ago?
I think they've done a great job. You go down there and play in that atmosphere. You know, Beaumont's a great football place. That's a good football area. Their facilities, they've redone their stadium. They've got a fabulous end zone complex, and that brings in players, and you can tell they're recruiting well, and Coach Woodard does a fine job down there.
Lamar's forced 7 interceptions against its opponents. How good is the Cardinals' defense?
Well, the thing you see when you study their defense, those guys are exactly where they're supposed to be. They're not overly complicated, which gives them a chance to feel comfortable where they are and sit back there and break on balls. They've been doing a fine job of getting pressure on quarterbacks, and that's the key. And some of them were tip balls, but the thing is if you're in the right spot, you're going to be able to take advantage of tip balls.
Coach, we talked about Cade Harrington a little bit earlier in the program. And when you were talking about his ability to find creases in the defense, it made me think of last year's game. There were a lot of the big runs he broke off that looked, at least to the naked eye, that we had players there ready to stop it. And when you have a running back like that, doesn't it create extra opportunities for the quarterback?
Oh, gosh, it does. Yeah, because if you don't plan to stop a great running back, then he's gonna run for 7-8 yards a pop, and that's what he does. He goes 5-6 yards a pop, and then he'll pick his spot. He's a great player. He's going to hit a home run every now and then. And if you don't plan for that, put extra people in the box in order to stop the cutback. He can set you up, cut the thing back, and be gone. If you don't have a guy there that can force him to run laterally, then you got big problems. What that does in a game of football is is create one-on-ones on the outside. And football is, in essence, it's about winning the one-on-ones. And a one-on-one on a big field is hard to win.
We're halfway through the season. Looking forward, is there any young guys that you see that are really impressing you, either it be on the field during a game or on the field during practice?
Well, we've got young guys, but they're not playing consistent right now, and that's they're playing, which we feel good enough about to get them out there. But we've got it from start to finish. We've got to have quality play from first quarter to fourth quarter from those guys. We've got a lot of young receivers, and they make plays, but then they drop some balls like we saw in the game against UCA. So we've got a ways to go with our young guys. We believe in them though, and or we wouldn't be putting them out there. So they just got to grow up a little bit.
The advantage to that is next year and the year after and the year after that, you're going to have still young guys, but with experience.
That's exactly
which
right.
could be really powerful, couldn't it?
And that's the way we've set this thing up for 2017. When we're eligible for the playoffs and when we play in our new stadium, that's when these young guys have gotten reps under their belts and now they're ready to go.
Well, tonight against Lamar should be a good one. Kickoff is at 6 p.m. The pregame show on radio and our webcast will begin at 5:30 on the ACU Sports Network. For Coach and for Hannah, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Ken Collums Show presented by Lawrence Hall. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you next week.